Well, that's not good. Looks like the water pump is leaking. Yep. Well, folks, looks like we're fixing to put a water pump on the 93 Toyota with the 22 RE. So I went ahead, I jumped out there and I took the radiator out of it. Of course, before you do that, you need to remove this piece of tubing that goes from your intake over to this box over here. Took that off, went ahead, inspected what I got to do. Probably should have took the part of the video where I took the radiator out, but once you get that out, there's only one right here and one right down here. 2 bolts per side, and the radiator sits right down in there. Connect your hoses up and you're done. So I drained it earlier out in a pan, took the radiator out. Didn't get that on film, I do apologize. Anyway, I'll get some of this right there. The water pump, for anybody that hasn't done it on one of these trucks, is really easy to get to. First thing I'll have to do, of course, is get down here and remove those 4 bolts, those taps, and get those where I can get this fan off. I'll have to take tension, loosen this tensioner pulley right here. No, I won't have to take that one loose, will I? I'll have to take the alternator loose. I almost misled you, I'm sorry. Have to take the alternator loose because the only belt that goes around the water pump pulley goes around the harmonic balancer and around the alternator. So I'll get those loose. Let's check that out right quick. That's right up there. Took those bolts loose and there'll be a tensioner. No problem. Get that alternator loosed and pull the fan off. That ought to give me good access to get to those bolts right there. This water pump was put on there when I done a rebuild on this motor. In 2013, it blew a head gasket. And I'll put some pictures up here in a minute. Done a complete rebuild on the motor. And this is a, I think I got this at AutoZone, the water pump. So the original was on there from 1993 to 2013. And then of course this is an aftermarket and I got almost 10 years out of it. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the tools and everything we need to where we can pull these, take these tensioners loose, and we'll try to show you a little step by step to get this water pump off this thing, show you what it's got. A little play. I can't really catch it on camera, but there's a little bit of play. Probably a bearing went out, which is it wore the seal out. The water's coming out the little seep hole that's down there in the bottom. Stay tuned. Let me get some stuff to work with and we'll see if we can't get a video on this. All right, what you got to do, I've got a 14 millimeter, which is going to fit this and this. We're going to have to take this idler pulley, drop it down, get this belt off, then we got to get this off out of the way. Then we're going to have to do something about the belt that goes around the alternator and the water pump. But we'll get to those. Let's go ahead and get these loose, get this back down, take this belt loose. These bolts right here had not been off since 2013 when I rebuilt this motor, so I would advise to use it's a 10 millimeter, a 6-point socket or wrench, because those things were tight and they did not want to break loose. I about stripped the shoulders on one of them, so I went and got a 6-point. Now that they're broke loose, the old ratchet wrench, Walmart brand, they work wonderful. Let's go ahead and get these off there. All right, I couldn't film and take it loose. There is 2 bolts. One which is right there in this slide, and one which is right there. You're gonna have to loosen both of those up and pull your alternator over toward the motor. That lets you free this belt up, which in turn frees this pulley up, which in turn gets you to the water pump. Now we're just going to take that belt and swing it right around out of the way. Now we're ready to take all of these bolts loose and get this culprit off there. Looks like they're mostly 10 millimeter, sorry about the focus, 10 millimeter with maybe an 11 or 12 thrown in there. See, there's the problem. All right, let's go ahead and get the tools and see if we can get those bolts out and take a look at it. All right, we've got all the bolts loose and you can tell it's starting to leak on the ground. I have flushed the system and it should have nothing but just water. There it is. I got one bolt left. It is loose. It's been a little hateful to try to get out of there, but that's all that's left. Let's get this up off here. We can take a better look at it. All right, I have cleaned and prepped the area. I've got the bolts all cleaned up and ready to go. Let's take a quick look at the old water pump. Visibly, I mean just visually rather, you can't really see nothing wrong with it. A little gummed up there, the thing spins free, but apparently the gasket, the seal back in here has went to leaking, and of course these things are made in a way to where when that happens, that little hole right there, if anybody hasn't fooled with it, they start seeping. That's what happened here. The seal went bad, I guess. The bearing just got a little bit of play. The water, the antifreeze just started slowly coming out that hole and getting worse and worse. But this thing was put on in 2013. Let's get the new one out of the box and see what we got. All right, we got the new pump right here. We got the gasket already in place. These right here, these studs are gonna help line everything up. Slowly put it back on there. I'd recommend putting, starting all your bolts, running them up by hand. I'm not gonna use the impact to tighten them. Start all the bolts by finger, by hand, by running them up there. And take the socket and ratchet and tighten them up. Like I said, I am not gonna use the impact on these because that is aluminum and cast and everything. It's just a recipe for disaster. All right, there it is, all tightened down. Like I say, I run those up. Now remember, your bolts and your taps and all the studs are metal. Everything else is just cast and some aluminum. It can strip out, so I can't stress enough. Don't impact them. Run them up slow and take your time. But make sure they're all about the same. I'm not sure about the torque settings. I went by feel because if you tighten it up so tight that it's loose again, you done went and messed up. So let's start with the reinstall process. We're gonna start with putting this belt back over this way, putting it around the alternator. Now we're gonna get our pulley, put it up on here. We're gonna have to get the belt on top of it. I can't one-hand all this stuff, get everything lined up. Like I said, I'm gonna have to put the camera down, but you gotta get that lined up, gotta put the new studs in there, which I forgot to do. Let's do that right quick. I'm the one making the video and I still forgot these. They come with brand new ones with the water pump. Simply start them in like that, and whenever you tighten everything else up, it will run them down. Now, you can put the pulley back on like that. Get your belt up on top of it. And around the alternator, you're gonna have to put the alternator back in place. And once you get the fan on and it tightened down, so this pulley will stay level right here, then you can tighten the alternator down. We'll go ahead and get that done off camera and we'll be right back. All right, as you can see, I've got all the belts back on, tightened up. Got these 4 bolts here on, fans tightened up. Everything that I took loose is tight. The alternator's back in place. It's time for the radiator. Now I've got it over here. I've done cleaned it out and flushed it out off camera, but it's just as simple as setting back down in here. And you got 4 bolts, like I told you the other day. I'm sorry I didn't have it on camera taking it out, but I got started into this before I realized, hey, I should have done that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get the radiator set down there and get some water in it and see what this thing looks like. We're going to run it with water for a couple of days, considering it's the second day of September, so ain't got to worry about freezing. We're going to run it with water for a couple of days, make sure there's no leaks. Then put antifreeze in it and get it set up for winter. All right, let's get the radiator. Well, here we have it all back together. Got everything back together. There's no water leaking. I filled it up. Like I say, I'm running it on straight water right now for a couple of weeks to make sure everything works out okay. Sounds like it's got a turbo or something. It's got a whine. I have no idea. It's got a whine, but it sure don't show up whenever you stomp the gas. But anyway, like I say, hope this video was halfway helpful. If you enjoyed it, it helped, please like, share, subscribe. And I'm sure there'll be more things to do. The Toyota, it is old. It's a 93 model. Y'all have a great day. God bless. We'll see you on the next one. Okay, so I got to checking, and I was noticing when I edited this video, I went back and looked. If this thing will focus. Right there. There's the water pump that just came off of here. So I went back to where I rebuilt this thing in 2013, this motor. And I did indeed put the factory Toyota water pump back on it. So this water pump right here is a 1993 model. I thought I'd replaced it, but had to edit this into the video. That is the factory water pump. It's got several miles, and more importantly, a little over 30 years worth on it. So let's see if we can get that out of the aftermarket.